Up until the end of the 2017 regular season, Carson Wentz looked to be the league MVP and the future of the Eagles franchise, and possibly the NFL. He was putting up some of the best numbers in the league, while also leading Philly to the #1 seed in the conference. But within just 3 years, his career would come crashing down, after an injury sidelined him in his team's first Super Bowl victory, followed by multiple seasons of inconsistent and erratic play, along with tension between teammates and coaching staff. The once promising future of Carson Wentz would ultimately lead him to a permanent spot on the bench as a journeyman QB. In this video, we will look back on Carson Wentz's career, who went from a relatively unknown D2 college prospect to an early first-round pick and potential superstar, before seeing his career fall off drastically. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Now let's get into it. Carson Wentz grew up in Bismarck, North Dakota, where he was a multi-sport athlete at Century High School, before committing to play college ball for local D2 powerhouse North Dakota State. After serving as a backup quarterback in his first 2 seasons, Wentz would finally get the chance to start in the 2014 season and would continue the Bison's dominant run of success. They would finish the year at 15-1 and route to their 4th consecutive national championship, with Wentz leading the team in both passing and rushing yards that season. A broken wrist would limit his playing time in the 2015 season, but he would make it back in time for the national championship game, where he led NDSU to its 5th straight national championship, earning him his 2nd consecutive D2 championship game Most Outstanding Player award. Wentz would finish his career with 5,115 yards and 45 touchdowns, which put him in the conversation for the top pick in the 2016 NFL Draft. In the lead-up to that year's draft, it was between Cal's Jared Goff and Carson Wentz for the #1 overall pick, and although most people were split on their opinions of the 2 QBs, Goff would ultimately go #1, leaving Wentz to be drafted by the Eagles with the 2nd pick, making him the highest selected FCS player in NFL history. As a rookie, Wentz was named the starting quarterback and played all 16 games in 2016, finishing the year with 3,782 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. Even with his pedestrian numbers in his rookie year, Wentz had shown glimpses of his potential, which gave Philly hope that they had found their QB of the future. Heading into the 2017 season, with expectations high for the Eagles, Carson Wentz would help propel Philly to the next level with his breakout sophomore campaign, which would also be the best season of his career. After going 7-9 the year before, Philly would go on a roll, finishing at 13-3, which was tied for the best record in the league, with Wentz playing lights out and looking like the frontrunner for the MVP. That season, Wentz threw for 3,296 yards, with 33 touchdowns to 7 interceptions and a 101.9 passer rating. However, a Week 14 matchup against the Rams would prove to be a pivotal moment in Carson Wentz's career. In the third quarter of a shootout with LA, where Wentz had already thrown for 291 yards and 4 touchdowns, he would injure his knee while diving over the goal line for a touchdown. Wentz was clearly in pain, and it would be confirmed the following day that he had torn his ACL, forcing him to miss the remainder of the season. This was a devastating blow for Wentz and the Eagles, who had Super Bowl and MVP aspirations heading into the postseason. With the Eagles' fears confirmed, they would have to turn to journeyman quarterback Nick Foles to lead Philly into the playoffs. And in a surprising turn of events, Foles would not just keep things afloat, but arguably had the Eagles playing better with him under center. Foles would lead Philly to their first Super Bowl appearance since 2005, where they would upset Tom Brady and the New England Patriots to win the first Super Bowl in franchise history. Although this was a triumphant and historic end to the season for the Eagles, who overcame a whirlwind of obstacles and emotions, it had to have been tough for Wentz to witness this all play out from the sidelines. After leading this team through the regular season and on the cusp of winning an MVP, one play would wipe that all out and force him to watch someone else capture that glory. It was later revealed that Wentz had even expressed displeasure to teammates that the team was seeing success without him, which led to a confrontation by a teammate, with the two having to be physically separated. And unfortunately for Wentz, the 2017 season would be the peak of his career, and things would begin to fall apart for the young QB in the years to come. After witnessing Nick Foles lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl title, some people questioned how much of the team's success could be attributed to Wentz, and how much of it was the product of the talent around him. This notion added pressure to Wentz in his return, and he was eager to prove his worth to the team. Wentz would be back on the field in Week 3 of the 2018 season, and although he managed to put up decent numbers in his return, the Eagles were experiencing mixed results with Wentz back in the starting role, and rumors of locker room discontent were swirling around the team. According to Josina Anderson, an anonymous Eagles player believed Wentz was negatively impacting the team, painting the picture that Wentz wasn't a good leader or locker room guy, which is a sentiment that has followed him throughout his career. Along with the tensions in the locker room, injuries would plague him throughout the 2018 season and force him to miss the last 3 games of the year, with the Eagles sitting at 5-6. To make matters worse for Wentz, Nick Foles would come back into the lineup and see immediate success, going 3-0 and leading the Eagles to a playoff victory. By season's end, more and more people were starting to question whether the team would be better off without Wentz, and things would really escalate following the release of a scathing article from Philly Voice in which more than a half dozen Eagle players were anonymously interviewed. In the story, it was revealed how Wentz's teammates found him to be selfish and egotistical, while while also claiming he was not open to coaching. Although some of his teammates came to his defense, people were now wondering about Wentz's long-term future in Philadelphia. Despite the turmoil surrounding the team, the Eagles would re-sign Wentz to a 4-year, $128 million extension ahead of the 2019 season, indicating that the team still had hope for their young QB. With the new deal in place, Wentz would go on to have one of the best seasons of his career, and it appeared that things might be headed in the right direction. Wentz threw for a career-high 4,039 yards and 27 touchdowns, becoming the first player in franchise history to throw for at least 4,000 yards, while also leading Philly to an NFC East title and a playoff spot. Unfortunately for Wentz, his 2019 playoff run would be brief. After being ruled out of the game with a head injury just 9 snaps into the game, the Eagles would go on to lose their wildcard matchup against the Seahawks 17-9. Although this was a disappointing end to the season, Wentz had shown some signs of life in 2019, leaving some people cautiously optimistic about the team's prospects heading into the next season. However, Wentz's disastrous 2020 campaign would ultimately lead to his exit from Philadelphia. The 2020 season would be a drastic fall-off for the Eagles. Wentz, who had a tendency to play off schedule, was trying to force things on offense and continued to turn the ball over. His careless and erratic play would eventually lead to his benching in Week 13, making way for backup quarterback Jalen Hurts. At the time of his benching, Wentz led the league in interceptions with 15, total turnovers with 19, and sacks taken with 50. He would end the year as the league leader in all of those categories, despite only playing 12 games. With Wentz already on shaky ground with his teammates, fans, and the organization, the Eagles made the decision to split from Wentz and traded him to the Colts ahead of the 2021 season. With a fresh start and change of scenery, Indy was hopeful that Wentz could regain his former MVP caliber play and serve as a missing piece to this Colts roster that was in desperate need of a quarterback. As we all know, that would not be the case. The same issues that had been reported in Philly would resurface once again in Indy. After getting off to a strong start to the season, the Colts would suffer an epic late-season collapse, with many people internally pointing the finger at Wentz. Although he managed to put up some solid numbers, throwing for 3,563 yards with 27 touchdowns, Wentz's poor play and lack of leadership to end the season would ultimately lead to his demise. And once again, reports came out from anonymous teammates criticizing Wentz's leadership skills, resistance to coaching, and reckless style of play. As it turned out, things got so bad behind the scenes that the Colts would decide to cut ties with Wentz after trading a first and third round pick for him 1 year prior. Despite yet another indictment on Wentz, he still somehow managed to get one more chance to be a starting quarterback when the Commanders traded for him in 2022, which was his second trade in just 13 months. Now on his third team in 3 years, Wentz would have to start over once again, and similar to his previous stints with the Eagles and Colts, Wentz would get off to a decent start in Washington. However, an injury to his throwing hand in Week 6 would land Wentz on IR till December 12th, and he wouldn't get his starting role back until Week 17 against the Browns. With the Commanders needing to win that game to have any chance of making the playoffs, Washington was counting on Wentz to deliver. Unfortunately, that would not be the case. Wentz would have a dreadful outing, throwing for only 143 yards, with 0 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, with the Commanders losing 24-10 and missing out on the postseason. I think by that point, even Wentz had to know that was most likely his last opportunity at being a starting quarterback in the NFL. And just like the year before, Washington decided to move on from Wentz after just 1 season. Since his release from the Commanders, Wentz has bounced around to a couple of different teams, serving as a backup quarterback. He had a 1-year stint with the Rams in 2023, before signing with his current team, the Chiefs, in 2024 to back up Patrick Mahomes, which was his 4th team in 4 years. When looking back on Wentz's time in the league, it is truly a shocking fall from grace for a player who was once on the cusp of superstardom, but instead saw his career fall apart so rapidly. From the moment he injured his knee on that one play in 2017, everything went downhill for him. Some of that is due to injury, but most of it was self-inflicted and was a result of his poor decision-making and attitude towards teammates and coaches. Wentz had more opportunities than most players get to turn his career around, but never seemed to learn from his past failures and continued to make the same mistakes. A small part of me does feel a little bad for him, seeing how his career has played out, because I do think he had talent and potential, as well as all of the physical tools to be a star in this league. But when you really break everything down, Wentz has no one to blame but himself. Maybe now that he's been humbled and has accepted his role as a backup, Wentz can finally change people's perception of him and continue to have a place in the NFL. But only time will tell how the remainder of his career turns out. I found this to be a really fascinating story and a reminder of just how quickly things can change in this league. On that note, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know your thoughts on Carson Wentz down below in the comments. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. As always, I truly appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.